71%. I want you to just take a second and really let that number sink in, because 71% is the staggering amount of low-income families in our communities who are going to experience at least one civil legal issue this year. I mean, we're talking about nearly 3/4 of vulnerable families facing literal life-altering crises, things like an unexpected eviction, a foreclosure, or domestic violence. And they're trying to navigate all of this while just trying to make ends meet. The stakes absolutely could not be higher, and yet, this system they're forced to navigate is incredibly complex.
Okay, let's dive into this because there is a massive misconception out there about how our legal system actually works. We've all heard that famous phrase on TV, right? If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. But here's the catch. That protection, which is guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment, only applies in criminal court if you're facing imprisonment. In civil court, there is absolutely no guaranteed counsel. None. If you're a mother fighting for child custody, a family staring down an illegal eviction, or a disabled veteran who just got their benefits denied, you are entirely on your own unless you can afford private representation. And let's be honest, most people just can't.
And that harsh reality is exactly why we created this explainer. Our main goal today is to completely demystify the civil legal aid system. We're going to give you a highly practical, step-by-step roadmap to finding free legal representation right here in North Carolina. Whether you're looking for help for yourself, maybe a family member, or just someone in your community, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know to navigate this incredibly stressful process from start to finish. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with a civil justice gap, then we'll look at how to figure out if you qualify for help. We'll meet the primary organizations you can reach out to, go over the exact steps to apply for aid, explore some alternative legal resources just in case, and finally, we'll talk about taking action and your next steps.
Section 1. The Civil Justice Gap. If you have ever tried to resolve a legal issue and felt completely overwhelmed by the whole thing, trust me, you are not alone. The system is structurally really difficult to access. In fact, the data shows us that in 3/4 of all civil cases, at least one side doesn't have an attorney. That means thousands of North Carolinians are forced to proceed pro se. If you haven't heard that term, it just means they have to represent themselves in court. Imagine having to draft complex legal motions, figure out the rules of evidence, and actually face off against a trained opposing counsel, all regardless of your own education level or even if English isn't your first language. It's a hugely daunting challenge, and sadly, it often leads to people just giving up on their day in court altogether.
Section 2. Do you qualify for help?
So, before you spend hours filling out applications, let's look at the actual parameters. The very first major filter is financial. Because these nonprofit law firms are, frankly, drastically underfunded, they have to maintain strict income limits. This is based on the federal poverty level, or FPL. Generally speaking, to qualify for free representation, your household income needs to fall somewhere between 125% and 200% of the FPL. To put that into real-world perspective, 125% of the federal poverty level is roughly $39,000 a year for a family of 4. And they won't just look at income. They'll also look at your family size, your assets, and your basic living expenses to make this final determination.
Now, the second filter is the actual type of legal issue you're facing. Legal aid programs have to prioritize, so they focus on cases that threaten a person's basic human needs. We're talking about housing stability, like eviction defense or foreclosure prevention, family law, specifically things like Chapter 50B domestic violence protective orders, public benefits, like if you need to appeal a denial of Medicaid or food and nutrition services, and consumer protection against predatory lending. But I absolutely cannot stress this enough. They do not cover criminal cases, traffic tickets, or DUIs, period. If you're dealing with a criminal charge, you have to go through the public defender's office.
Section 3. Meet the primary organizations.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how North Carolina's civil legal aid is set up. It operates through a fragmented but essential network based entirely on where you live. First up, we have Legal Aid of North Carolina, or LANCE. They're the biggest provider operating statewide across all 100 counties, and they usually serve clients at or below 125% of the poverty level. Then we have the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy. They focus heavily on the Mecklenburg, Cabarrus, and Union County areas, and they can actually often assist folks up to 200% of the poverty level. Finally, there's Pisgah Legal Services. They are an incredible organization covering 11 to 18 counties in western North Carolina, and they also serve households between 125% and 200% of the poverty level. But beyond those regional providers, there are also a few specialized groups that operate statewide for very targeted issues. For example, Disability Rights North Carolina provides systemic and direct advocacy for individuals with physical, mental, or developmental disabilities. And crucially here, their eligibility is based on disability status, not strict income limits. There's also the Land Loss Prevention Project. They provide legal support specifically to financially distressed and limited resource farmers and landowners to help them preserve their family property.
Section 4. Steps to apply for aid. Okay, if you're in a crisis, you need a concrete action plan. The standard application pipeline happens in 4 basic steps. Step 1 is pre-screening. You can certainly do this by calling their toll-free intake lines, but honestly, the most efficient way is often online. Legal Aid of North Carolina recently launched a digital portal called Justice Hub. It's a real game changer because you can apply from any phone or computer 24/7. Step 2 is income verification, where they'll confirm your financial eligibility. Step 3 is case type determination, where they make sure your issue actually falls into their priority areas. And if everything aligns, Step 4 is attorney assignment. Now, I want to give you a massive tip for success here. Prepare your paperwork beforehand. Gather your leases, your court summons, any letters from your landlord, or benefit denial notices way before you start the application. Having those documents ready to go literally drastically speeds up the whole process.
Section 5. Alternative legal resources.
So we do have to acknowledge a tough reality here. Wait lists exist. Sometimes these organizations simply have to turn eligible people away just because they are at capacity. If that happens to you, one fantastic digital alternative is NC Free Legal Answers. It's a virtual legal advice clinic operated by the American Bar Association. Basically, if you meet the income requirements, you can log on, post your specific civil legal question, and a licensed volunteer pro bono attorney will answer it directly via email. It's a really great backup plan to get targeted advice if you don't necessarily need full in-court representation.
So the crucial point is that you should also be leveraging community and pro bono clinics. For example, the NC Bar Foundation runs this annual statewide event called Lawyers on Call, where you can literally just speak with an attorney on the phone for free. You can also use the Law Help NC website to track down self-help materials and local directories. Plus, there are localized organizations like the Compass Center for Family Law and Domestic Violence in the Triangle area, and various law school clinics at institutions like UNC. At those clinics, law students actually provide assistance under the close supervision of seasoned attorneys.
Also, keep in mind that certain demographics have their own dedicated resources. We can see here that there are specialized legal clinics set up just for military veterans. A lot of organizations partner directly with the VA to offer walk-in centers and virtual appointments. They help veterans with family law, landlord issues, and very specific needs, things like discharge upgrades or navigating those super complex government benefits. So if you served, absolutely seek out these targeted veterans legal assistance programs.
Section 6. Taking action and next steps.
Let's move to and see how this builds in the real world, because when this system actually connects a person in need with the right advocate, it works beautifully. Consider a true story from Disability Rights NC. When their staff first found a man named Ty, he was living in a psychiatric hospital. He was confined to a wheelchair, and he was completely unable to speak or walk. But upon investigation, the legal team discovered that his condition wasn't just some unavoidable reality of his disability. It was actually because he was being dangerously over-medicated in that facility.
But DRNC intervened. They stepped up and provided the legal advocacy Ty so desperately needed to challenge his treatment and his living situation. And because of that free legal aid, Ty was released. Today, he no longer lives in an institution. He lives independently in his own community. He's involved in his church, he works part-time, and he has the support of his friends and family around him. That is the tangible, life-saving impact of proper legal representation. It literally gave Ty his life back.
You know, the North Carolina Constitution contains a really powerful mandate. It says, "Justice shall be administered without favor, denial, or delay." But as we've seen today, justice is often delayed or denied simply because a person cannot afford the cost of entry. The organizations we've talked about today, they're out there fighting on the front lines to make that constitutional promise a reality for everyone, regardless of their bank account.
If there is one absolute best troubleshooting tip for navigating a legal crisis, it's this: do not wait. Early intervention is the greatest tool you have in your toolbox. The very moment you receive an eviction notice, or a benefits denial, or face a threat to your safety, you need to reach out. Contact legal aid, get on Justice Hub, or call one of those pro bono clinics we discussed. Protect your home, protect your family, and protect your rights.
Before we wrap up, please note that the information provided in this explainer is strictly for educational purposes and should not be considered personal legal advice. We always encourage you to consult with a qualified attorney for your specific situation. But I want to leave you with this final thought. Your rights are really only as strong as your ability to defend them. So will you take action early to protect your home, your family, and your future? Thank you so much for joining us, and we truly wish you the very best on your journey to justice.